Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another video at my YouTube channel. We are jumping right into today's project, and I'm using the Hot Lips stencil from Simon Says Stamp. I have that placed on top of some pitch black cardstock from Hero Arts that is cut to 4¼ by 5½. This is going to create the card for today's video. I'm also going to be creating an envelope. So I'm using two different colors of Glitz Glitter Gel from Simon Says Stamp and ThermoWeb. These two colors actually come in a set of 6, so I'll have that linked down below in the supplies for this video if you want to check that out. But while these jars are quite small, they really do stretch really far. I hardly use any of this that's in the jar for today's project, and especially if you're mixing two colors together, you can really stretch those smaller jars of Glitz Glitter Gel. So this is the color Cherry. I'm applying it with a palette knife. And when I'm done with that color, I'm going to clean off the palette knife really well, and then it's ready to go on to another color. The second color I'm using today is Amethyst. It's a nice purple shade, and I'm going to apply it in the areas where I don't have the cherry color, and I'm going to kind of let these mix on my project. I'm not going to be taking my palette knife back into that jar because I don't want to mix the colors and possibly contaminate the amethyst jar with some of that red. It really wouldn't be that big of a deal, but just to make sure I keep my colors really, really clean and separate, I'm not going to be going back into that jar. Something else I wanted to let you guys know about is that before I started applying this gel, and before I actually put the stencil on my project, I sprayed the back of this stencil with a little bit of Pixie Spray from ThermoWeb. And Pixie Spray is a very gentle, removable adhesive. It just helps the stencil really stick to the project and not have any areas that kind of pull away or shift while I'm working with the stencil. I can usually use a stencil 2 or 3 times with it cleaning in between without having to reapply that Pixie Spray. So I'm pulling back that stencil and you can see how sharp those edges are. I think the Pixie Spray really works well for things like this because it has all those little edges on the stencil, the um, little tails or little images on the lips. Those could really be a problem if I hadn't used Pixie Spray. I'm now using the XL Love Greetings stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm actually going to stamp a bunch of these greetings on some vellum. I'm only going to be using a couple of them today, but I thought, you know what? I have this large piece of vellum. I'm going to go ahead and fill it with all these greetings that I love that I possibly could use on other projects. And I'm going to stamp and emboss and die cut them all at the same time. I'm using my Misty Stamp Positioning tool so that I can stamp these all at the same time. So I'm going to use an anti-static powder tool. This is I think it's called the Cottontail from Rabbit Hole Designs. I'm still learning how to use it, but it seems to be really great. I might talk about it more in a future video, but for now I really like it. So I did my anti-static powder tool, and then I'm stamping all of these greetings in Versamark ink. Versamark is absolutely fantastic for embossing. If anyone ever has a problem with heat embossing and they email me or comment on a video and they say they're having trouble, I ask them if they're using Versamark. And if they're not, I highly encourage them to try Versamark because it just works so well and the pad just never seems to dry out. I think your pad will wear out first before it dries out. And you can always get the re-inker as well. I applied some gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe and then hit that with my heat tool until everything was smooth and melted. I'm then applying, or I should say positioning, the coordinating dies for these greetings right on top inside my die cutting sandwich using that magnetic mat. Ran that through my Anna Griffin Empress machine, and here we are. I've got all these greetings cut out. Now, like I said before, I'm only going to be using a couple of them today, but I will save the others so that I can use them on future projects. In fact, my next video, I'll be using a couple of these that I've already cut out in this video. So I have them all cut out, and I'm sort of starting to think which ones do I want to use on top of this lips stenciled background. And I decided to go ahead and kind of like play with a few, put them on top, see what it looks like. And I decided to go with the words love you. I thought it would be simple enough and it wouldn't kind of obscure or disguise much of that background. I really love that background. So I took some very thin foam strips. These are uh, thin or narrow strips from Darice, and I cut them into smaller pieces and positioned them directly behind the words to hide the adhesive. I put those little bits of foam just behind the gold embossing, and then I was able to use my tweezers and place them onto the card. Actually, before I did that, I adhered the background to a card base. This card base is Semenina Classic Crest Solar White 110-pound cardstock, and I've just created a side folding card base, and I'm adhering my lips background right on top. I did trim that background to be slightly smaller than an A2 card, and then just to get everything lined up perfectly, I did trim off a little bit of the excess cardstock on the card base, just so everything was perfectly centered on the front of the card. And then I grabbed my tweezers and I applied the love and you words right on here. I positioned them a little bit more near the top, but still centered, and that leaves a bunch of that background still showing. I love that you can see the difference in colors with the kind of fuchsia amethyst color into the red. It has a really fun color shift when you move it in the light. Okay, so this card, you could leave it like this, but I decided I wanted to add one more little element onto the card, and I wanted to have a heart right below the greeting. So I grabbed my Tons of Hearts stamp set, and I picked up one of the smaller hearts and then stamped that in some Versamark ink onto that vellum piece that I used earlier for all the greetings. I'm going to do the same steps by applying some gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. I'll hit that with my heat tool, and then I'm going to use my scissors to cut it out since there aren't coordinating dies for that stamp set. So I just used my scissors and trimmed it out, put some foam adhesive on the back, and then I positioned it directly below the greetings. And I did it this way instead of a die cut or anything like that because I wanted that same gold color that's on the greetings. So that is the finished card. And we're going to go right into the envelope. I wanted to make a fun envelope that coordinated with this card. So I have a black envelope here, has a square flap. And the first thing I'm going to do is take that lip stencil, which I cleaned off really well and dried. And I'm going to take a pencil and just trace the lip shape. And I'm going to kind of move the stencil around and create my own arrangement of these lips because I wanted them to sort of hug the bottom left corner of the envelope, leaving the remainder of the envelope for the recipient's address and the postage. I really wanted these lips to just be kind of going off the edge. I'm now using some watercolors from Yuli Watercolors. I think this was a specialty set. I'll look it up and find it in her shop and link this specific color below, but I love it because it's a kind of a shimmery metallic champagne, and the color goes really well with that gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. It has a similar tone. It's not too gold or brassy. It has a very more neutral tone to it, and I think it worked really, really well. And it's just bright and striking on this black envelope. It looks phenomenal. So for my envelope, I'm going to be sending this to my friend Susan Opal. She works with me at Simon Says Stamp. She's a full-time employee, but I am a contract employee. I design product for Simon. And so I work with Susan quite a bit, and I thought this would be super fun. And it's kind of right up Susan's alley. She has a very bright and vibrant personality, and she loves bold colors. And when I did these lips on the card and on the envelope, I was like, this is so much like Susan. It's going to be perfect. So now I'm using the Fire Red Karen marker. It's the one that in my last video on Monday, I said that I loved this shade and that you would see me use it. Well, here I am using it. I'm going over my penciled lettering, and I'm going to add some more thicks and thins and get the color really bright and vibrant over the black surface. And I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different with this lettering today. After I had the red lettering complete, I decided that I wanted to have a bit more color on the envelope. So, one of the features of these markers that I really love is that after you've used one color, if you're not convinced you love it, you can actually just go over the top with a different color. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to add a little bit more of a stylized look to her name by putting a different color on top. Now, after that red marker was dry, I just went over it with an eraser just to take away those pencil lines. And then I'm going to come in with a pink shade, kind of a purpley pink shade. And I'm going to color the bottom half of her first name with this purpley shade. And then I'm going to switch to an actual purple shade and use that for the bottom. So it sort of looks like there are three stripes of color creating her name. And I think that looks um, it almost looks very modern, like a 1960s mod look, kind of retro. I love that look. And these colors look absolutely fantastic. I was inspired by the red to amethyst shift of color on the card to use kind of reds to purples on her name. And I think it worked out really, really well. Now, I'm not going to put Susan's home address on blast on the internet. So for now, I'm just leaving a spot for where I'm going to put her address. So I'm using that same red shade and I'm going to put on three kind of longer boxes to put her address on the envelope. And I'm going to do the same thing for the flap of the envelope for my address. But I decided that for my address on the back, that I would switch to that darker purple shade. So I'm just going to do three long boxes in the purple shade on the flap. And then I'm going to come in with a white gel pen and put my return address, my P.O. box. So this is the exact way that I did her street address on the finished envelope that you won't see in this video since I'm protecting her address. But just a white gel pen over the top of this Karen marker. It works wonderfully. It's got a matte surface with the marker, so the gel pen goes right over top without any problem. I picked out 4 different postage stamps for this envelope. And for those of you who are wondering where I get all my postage stamps, I have been an avid collector for many years, so I have quite a few in my stash. But for ones that I just want to pick up that I don't have, I go online and I purchase them from sellers on Etsy, mostly on Etsy. So if you're ever wondering about postage or things like that, first, if you're in the United States, go to USPS.com and see what's available currently. There's going to be a lot of forever postage stamps that you can choose from. And then go over to Etsy.com and search for unused vintage postage stamps. And you're going to come up with a lot of different sellers that sell different postage stamps. I believe that's where I got this Louisiana stamp and also the red 3-cent stamp. So that is the set for today's video, a card and an envelope. I'm going to go stick this in the mail and send it to my friend Susan right now for Valentine's Day. It is a very lovey-dovey card, but I think that's okay. Go ahead and tell your friends that you love them. Valentine's Day is for everyone. Thanks for watching today. I will see you guys in another video very soon.